I don't even know if I have anything to say today. I haven't prepared anything. Although usually I don't prepare anything. I don't like a little script or anything like that. Do these make me look cool? In some ways, I think the glasses make it harder for me to think. Is it harder to think with your eyes open or with your eyes closed, Bill? Off? Is it easier to think this way or this way? This way or this way? I think this looks better. I think someone with these cool, well, they're not really. They look cool here, but I mean, if you look at them, they're not the least bit cool. They're really kind of something out of steampunk or something. They're really beat up and old. I don't remember where these things came from. I think that my dad's, God rest his soul. Now, usually I had some idea in my head about what to talk about. I've been having health problems because yeah. Someone went on about they wanted to help me by calling me fat. I don't think you really help somebody by telling them that they're fat and then claiming that you're trying to help them by insulting them. That's your ego speaking. You're a bully, and you're a sadist, and you just want to put someone down. You got to look at yourself and realize that by doing that, that just shows what a shabby, insecure person you are. That you have to go picking on some fat old man. Hmm. Yeah, I really like this little pocket knife. I'm glad I got it. It was only like $10. I don't know how good of a weapon it is, but it's got a little blade. I just got some lighters. I don't smoke or anything like that, but I just realized if I had to light some candles, I don't even know if I've got matches in this house. So they're coming tomorrow, along with my diabetes kit. I lost mine. I'm going to buy a new one. It was only $19. What else did I get? Um, Toilet paper. Yeah, really exciting bunch of stuff that I've got. Let's take these things off. Driving me nuts. All right, Amazon. Oh, a notebook. Exciting. No, I'm not going to buy any more food. I got to stop buying stuff. I'm going to go broke. Yeah. Bic Classic Lighters. Um, Blood Glucose Monitoring System by Contour. Omar said that was Contour next. $19. Okay, save money there. Save money there. That's good because I need that. Arriving tomorrow, I got 2-pack college ruled notebooks. Need those. Got a shipment of underwear arriving. Trust me, I need those. I didn't get the Death Wish coffee. I got the Amazon brand or organic free trade Peru. Blah blah blah. Still $5, but I mean that's nothing. I mean I was spending $20 a bag for coffee, which is way too much. So arriving today, toilet paper's arriving. Yeah, I got to stop buying food. I'm fat, but see that was the thing though. Now it's making me think maybe I should do something about being fat. But I just hate to have that person win. But I mean, I am fat. I mean, I really am. It's disgusting. I've kind of forgotten about my worm that ate Cleveland. I think that's just dead. It was a dream. It was a dream I had that I wanted to turn into a science. Well, it's up there someplace, lost in because I've got so many different pages. The the neighbors were aliens. The aliens next door, and they gave me this. I can't believe it, not chicken. And I was going to go into business with the aliens, and I know there were aliens. I thought they were just like a gay couple. Well, there are three of them, so I didn't know. It was kind of like solar opposites, in a world where people kind of accept that there are aliens. It's like, are they aliens? Area 54, do aliens really exist? Who knows? Do they live next door? Are they gay? Are they hermaphrodites? That's normal for them, not that, well, it's controversial. For centuries, it wasn't considered normal, and now it's like, I'm old. It's too much. It's too much for me to accept. It just is. This is pretty gross. I don't know why I'm doing this. I think I'm doing that to be deliberately gross. I just thought, what would an alien do? An alien would have alien weapons. You shine this in somebody's eyes, you could probably. Oh, God, yes, you can. No, I'm blind. Everything's purple, and I'm dizzy. And I had my sunglasses. I had these sunglasses on. If I wouldn't have the sunglasses, that's right, dummy. Duh. No wonder it didn't have an effect. You got sunglasses on, stupid. And this alien virus created monsters, and then the monsters became something a little more subtle, like vegan cereal. Like that guy in Idaho that stabbed all. That was it. But that's nobody even remembers that guy anymore. He's past history, I guess. That's kind of the sad thing. What's the new? Who's the new murderer? I guess it's the new murderer. Some dentist who poisoned his wife with arsenic and potassium cyanide. What a nudnik. I mean, how did he think he was going to get away with that? I don't even know. But it's just like, next. They just keep coming, these mass shooters and poisoners and. Yeah. Tired. And then I went into some idea about alternate realities and living in alternate realities where I was slipped into another alternate reality and basically just copied down the history and turned it into fiction. Coming from a timeline where the Soviet Union never fell apart, this timeline would seem rather strange, and then popping back and forth, and that's how your literary career. It's just thinking of all these what ifs. Like that game where World War One just never ended. Oh. Yeah, well, the human imagination, that's wonderful. I just wish I had a wonderful imagination. I'm really not all that imaginative. And then what do we have? We've got the banks failing. People going, well, we shouldn't be bailing them out. Yeah, right, right. You want another Great Depression? Is that what you want? Really? You want to take that chance? I don't know. Maybe you're right. Maybe we should bail them out. But it's like we're playing roulette because that's what they did during the Depression. They didn't bail anything out for 4 years. They let banks fail. They thought, natural selection. We'll let the strong banks prevail and the weak banks. And in a sense, you can't. There is a validity to that. There is a validity to that, and that is that it's really, really not healthy for an economy to prop up old, dying industries that can't compete. A good example of that might be the Soviet Union or the Eastern Bloc. Once it fell down, a lot of the industry just failed because it wasn't competitive. The products were just awful and pollutive. The British economy, where they had a lot of state industry, and it couldn't compete after Thatcher ended the subsidies. Their economy was really dying because the productive capacity of the economy was overburdened trying to subsidize these parts of the economy, the lemon socialism, the industries that just didn't work. So that is a valid point. You can't prop up sick industries, and they were worried in 2008 that that's what would happen with General Motors or Chrysler, but they came back. You got to know what's going on. You can't just throw money at something. But I mean, sometimes it's like saying, well, you got lung, you got a mathematician, or you got a board of someone on the board of executive, for whatever reason, it has medical bills that they can't pay, and you're just going to let them die. That person, if he gets healthy, could be a real asset to society. And you know, well, he should have saved money. There's so much. It's like that saying from the Bible: the race is not always to the swift and the battle to the strong, but time and chance play their part in everything. Sometimes people just have bad luck. It's like my parents. They didn't have bad luck, but they believed in the social security system, and I'll tell you what they told me. And they were moderately Republican. I think they were Republican for most of me growing up because my dad made a decent living, and he was in that tax bracket where you pay out more than you get from the government, and I respect that. You can call that selfish if you want, but he worked hard. He wanted to keep it for himself. That was the old Republican Party. You wanted to keep taxes down. You wanted to keep services efficient, and you didn't want to give people more than absolutely had to, because they just get lazy and they wouldn't go back to work. Like you always said, well, if you want to give welfare to women, welfare checks to single mothers, that's fine, but only under one condition: that you get them daycare and train them to go back to work. He said he would even be willing to pay more in taxes if it would mean that they'd get daycare, they'd get training, and eventually, when he said eventually, he meant like pretty quick, these people would be back in the workforce paying taxes and eventually paying off their welfare. It's like paying the welfare system back for the money they borrowed. And that's kind of the conservative thing, not to just throw people to the dogs. But it's like Bismarck's original welfare system. Nobody gave you that money. No one was giving you free money. The government was like what they called the Vaterstaat, the father state, very German. If you made 10 marks in a week, the government would take 2 or 3 of those marks and save part of it for pension, part of it for unemployment, part of it for a sickness fund. So if you get sick, you could get funds, disability and unemployment and pension and health care. But that was your money. No one was paying for your welfare. And where did the money come from? And I know, because I'm from a German background and I know how these people think. They look out for each other, but it's like, Hans, you go down to the bar and you drink and you smoke your cigars, and every once in a while you pinch the Fraulines and the beer people, the women that work down at the beer hall, the barmaids, and you come home 5 marks short. You got nothing for your family. You don't have enough to eat. You don't have any money saved up for when you can become unemployed or when you're old. You had your good time, right? Well, the government comes along and says, "Okay, you are a hardworking person, but you're kind of stupid with your money." Of course, this isn't everybody, but society's got to function on almost like the lowest common denominator. You gotta create these programs because there's some people you're gonna have to sacrifice some of your liberty for the common good because there's some people that are just too stupid to manage their own affairs. Of course, there are people that manage their affairs fine, and you can invest and become rich. And I guess I hate to say this, but even in countries that have universal health care, that aren't like communist, I suppose even in communist countries, the Politburo members got better health care. Even in Britain, it has a national health care service where the government runs the health care. There's a private sector, and if you've got money and you want to pay more for private care, you can, and you will get better care. Or in Germany, everybody has to get an insurance policy, and you can get if you want, you can pay above and beyond the minimum, and it's actually more equal than the government-run system because the perks are things like you get a bigger room, you get a color television set, maybe air conditioned, maybe better made, but the basic care is basically the same, but you're just getting amenities. Yeah, so like pure communism's never going to work because you're going to have to punish people for being lazy and stupid. I mean, I know even though being stupid isn't their fault. And you have to reward people for being hardworking and productive and ingenious. Or there's no incentive. That's why socialism fails. You have to give people some sort of incentive and reward them for work. One, because it's just a necessary evil, and two, because it's kind of moral. If you're contributing more to society, don't you think you deserve a bigger house or a nicer car? Yeah, you people should look out for each other, make sure people aren't lying in the ditch, face down in a puddle of mud, starving to death, holes in their shoes, smelly underpants, whatever. You got to look out for the person on the bottom. But a lot of times, a system that allows people to get rich will do that better because I don't want to say trickle down, but a rising tide lifts all boats unless the boat has a hole in it, of course. It doesn't always, but Switzerland's a very capitalist country, probably one of the most, and they spend, I think I was reading someplace, they spend as much on welfare as the Swedes do because they can, because they've got it's like the old Republicans used to say, we'll expand the tax base, and with that revenue we'll use to fund social programs. But as we will create a more generous welfare state by having the economy grow and having the tax base expand. And even though we're taxing, say, at a lower rate at 25%, more revenue will come in because the economy's growing. Whereby a society where people are taxing the rich, at 75, the average person at 50, try to make everybody equal by taxing people. And I think people might be more equal, but that does place a burden on the economy because it restricts investment capital and reduces the incentive to invest and innovate. I mean, I hate to say that I wish we lived in a world where everybody could be equal, and I don't know if the government would run everything, but everybody would just work in a cooperative and we'd share everything and kumbaya. But that's just not the way things work. I mean, Singapore started out sort of as a social democracy. It did, but then as they got along, as things went along, they experimented with what worked and what didn't work. And what did work was basically well, I wouldn't say restricting people's individual behavior, but like if drugs, they hang drug dealers, they hang people that try to import guns. I think pornography is illegal, but ironically enough, prostitution in Singapore is legal. I guess so they figure guys got to get their nuts off. I think the argument with keeping pornography illegal is that pornography is kind of like showing a picture of a steak to a starving man. It's unhealthy. It's like the act itself might not be unhealthy. It's like going to the bathroom. Forgive me for being vulgar. But it's just kind of a release. You got to do it. I guess the theory in Singapore is, and I'm not really sure that the statistics bear this out. Maybe it does. I think the jury's out. I've seen statistics that go either way. That pornography kind of aggravates negative impulses in people, like kiddie porn. That'll make a pervert want to go out and rape kids. I mean, he might be, not thinking about it and not being, inspired to do that. It's not on his mind all the time. But then he sees those pictures and it sets something off in his brain. We don't even know what goes on in the brain when it sees a picture. It's like instinct, knee jerk. Psychologists have some understanding of what goes on in your filthy little brain. But it's that way with naked pictures. You might, if you don't see naked pictures, might not be constantly thinking about sex. But just if you're constantly looking at pornography, it's going to make you sad. It will. I got into a situation a few years ago. I'll tell you, I was like most people. When the internet first came on, I think they said there was like an explosion. It was like I'd spend. Do I even want to admit this? That was just 20 years ago. I'd spend hours and hours going through all this filthy pornography because it was new. And then after a while, I'd feel such remorse at wasting so much time. What's this all for? I think it would affect my mind and the way I looked at women. And it kind of made me nauseous because you had to see more and more intensive, to get off. And then you realize, what am I looking at? My God, what is that an eggplant or is that somebody's fist? What, oh. And then you'd feel, unless you're a psychopath, I think at some point you have to feel, what's going on? What sort of person am I? Did I be in? But you know what it is? It's the id. It's not too much of it. The shameful thing is not pulling back and not having some self-control. It's the impulse. A normal sex impulse is not necessarily shameful. The shameful thing is, and if you really can't control yourself, you ought to be locked up someplace, really, because no matter what, you shouldn't be out and about. But it's like guns. Maybe some people have the discipline, but if the more easy you make it to have guns in a society, the more likely you're going to have the combination of an unstable person and a gun. Now, if you take that unstable person and he's got a knife or he's got a baseball bat, like I've got over there, where is my baseball bat? Is it over in the corner? Yeah, all right. Or a hunting knife, or a hatchet, or a slingshot. This is the thing. You take a dangerous person with his fists, and then you take a dangerous person and give him a knife, or a baseball bat, or a gun. The more access that unstable person has to weapons, the more dangerous he becomes. Now, you can say, well, is the weapon dangerous? All right, well, this is the tricky part. No, that weapon, if you leave it sit on the table, is not dangerous. The dangerous part is when the crazy person holds the weapon in his hands and starts doing crazy things. And here's the other danger. A seemingly normal person who's had a bad day, had a couple drinks, has to file for bankruptcy, loses his job, his wife leaves him. Because the average person's child. Yeah, so much for the average person, the average law-abiding person. I mean, the papers, we don't have papers anymore, but the newscasts that we watch every day are full of people that were just normal law-abiding people, and then they snapped. Or they watched Fox News and decided they were going to run into a synagogue and kill all the Jews. Whatever crazy QAnon conspiracy. Average people aren't that smart. I don't care. And even if it's just 1 out of 10 people that's dangerous, does that mean you got to ban guns or ban alcohol? I don't know about banning. Even banning pornography. I don't like the idea that I understand that you don't want the government regulating your conduct and that you are an adult and you should be able to make decisions. But there has to be regulation of all those things. You got to have a drinking age. You're not going to let little 12-year-old kids run around with bottles of vodka. You don't let kids buy pornography. I think there's certain types of pornography that should be illegal. Not just child pornography, but like snuff films and like where they tie you up and it gets like violent, like rape. And they say it's just a fantasy. I don't go for that. I think maybe I'm getting old and conservative, but porn is unhealthy. Should they ban it? I don't know. But maybe there should even be more regulation of that. There should be. Because it's not a healthy thing. Alcohol is not a healthy thing. Marijuana is not a healthy thing. None of these things are healthy for you. And eventually, a significant portion of the population is going to have a problem with it. And they don't benefit anyone. Most things people do for fun are not good for them. Are they out getting exercise, playing? I mean, football's dangerous, but I mean, are they out playing soccer? No, they're sitting in a chair in front of a TV set, getting drunk, watching the game. And that's what they do for fun. They watch. They get fat like me. And someone out there's watching this going, well, I don't have that problem. I'm trim. I don't have to. Why should I pay a tax on my soda? I drink soda responsibly. I drink beer responsibly. Even if I want to risk my health with tobacco, that's my business. I'll pay for my own insurance. Well, from an individual standpoint, that's fine. Or maybe not, because say some old fat person has a heart attack and runs into your car, or keels over and falls over on you. You have to realize we live in a community with other people, and everybody's actions affect everybody else's actions. And all it takes is one nut to run into your school with all your precious little children and slaughter them. And that affects you. Well, that's the price you pay for living in a free country. No. There are things they can do. Licensing, registration, background checks, training. Like with cops. I mean, the whole defunding thing, what they need to do is 2 things. Better training. But better training is, there's a certain point where there's certain people on the force, the better training is not going to help. Because they never should have been a cop in the first place. Some of them are incompetent. Some of them are corrupt. And some of them are just fucking psychos. And so you got to vet people better. And that's kind of with like gun owners. You got to vet gun owners better. Now I'm off on a gun control rant again. Why do I always go back to that subject? I really shouldn't. Because I'm sure people get on the internet, they think, well, he wants to take all the guns. I don't think that's realistic in a Western society. Don't use the word Oriental. That's racist. In Asian societies, there was never a tradition of individual gun. They're much more communitarian societies. Guns were always withheld from the peasantry to keep them in line. Nobody wanted the peasants to have guns. That's not part of their history. They're much more family-oriented and group-oriented and more cooperative. And that benefits the Asian societies. They function better in some ways than Western civilizations because they're better behaved. And they're smart people too, and they're hardworking. Yeah, I don't want to be racist, but I mean, and I'm not going to deal with anybody else, but let's just compare those 2 cultures. Western Europeans have much more emphasis on individual liberty. And if you try to impose laws like they have in Japan and Singapore, I think they would be untenable. I think in this country especially, you'd have a revolution. And in Europe, a lot of these countries have hunting traditions. So it's pretty easy to get a license for a hunting weapon, or I guess even in Britain, which has really strict laws, you can get a sporting license for, I think you can even get semi-automatic shotguns. But you have to have a special license. You don't have a shotgun license, it's a firearms license. And you have to be a member of a club. And you can have handguns, but they have to be black powder. Or they have to have this like wire sticking out the back. These real long barrels. But they can go shoot their guns at the range. Still, they can still have fun. Still a 44 Magnum bullet coming out of it. Do the laws have to be that strict? There are countries in Europe that have very low crime rates, homicides rates, like Switzerland, like Italy, like Austria. Now, are guns strictly regulated there? Well, compared to what? Compared to Britain, no. Compared to Ireland, no. Compared to, well, I don't know if they're so strict in France. But in order to get a license for a gun, say in some place like Italy or Czechoslovakia or even Switzerland, you have to do a background check. You have to have a clean record. And when I say clean record, you can't even have drunk driving. You can't even have speeding tickets. And they do a background check. I guess you can get concealed carry pretty easy in Czechoslovakia. They're pretty. Alexa, is marijuana legal in Czech? Alexa, is marijuana legal in Czechoslovakia?
No. The Legal Marijuana Now Party is located in the United States. The Legal Marijuana Now Party's headquarters location is Boulder, Colorado, and the Legal Marijuana Now Party is from the United States.
No, you're okay. Alexa's not being helpful. Is marijuana legal in Czech Republic? We'll just put Czech. Cannabis in Czech Republic is illegal for recreational use, but personal possession has been decriminalized since 1st of January 2010, and medical cannabis has been legal since 2013. So it's kind of legal. Kind of legal. All right, let's take a look here. WannaCry. That'll piss him off. Not a very nice thing, not a very politically correct thing, and I apologize if anybody ever finds out this stupid thing. I just say things to upset people. Oh, then it's just so nice to be anonymous. There. See, that's another thing. I'm venting, but it just toxifies your soul. A lot of things you think you're enjoying and are released can kind of degenerate you. People think, oh, well, people are responsible or people are basically good. No, they're not. People are idiots. And I mean, you don't want to have too much control over people's life because first the government's got to enforce those laws like prohibition, and that can be a pain. And second of all, it does reduce the quality of people's lives. Because who wants to live in Saudi Arabia? You're not having any fun. What kind of life is that? I mean, are you allowed to breathe? My God. But no extreme is good. It's not. You don't want to live in a society where there are no drinking ages. You get people partying and boozing it up on the street, and they're shooting their guns off like the Wild West, and everybody's got venereal disease, and little kids look scared because, oh my God, I can't believe they let those people out. You got to have rules. You just have to. And you have to be realistic. The whole thing about unlimited rights is you're assuming that a vast majority, it doesn't even, you have to assume that a vast majority of society is well behaved. All it takes is 2 or 3%. All it takes is 1%. One person out of 100 to be a maniac or to be dishonest, to just completely throw a system off. That's why we have prisons. And that's why we have rules. And that's why guns should have to be licensed. Because I don't know how you'd license knives. That would be impractical. Or, you do have to get a license for a car. Cars are pretty necessary. Although maybe cars shouldn't even be necessary. Maybe we can make cars not necessary. In Europe, there are places where private automobiles can't go, that only these little electric quadricycles are allowed to go, or public transportation. Maybe we should be weaning people off the private automobile. They're expensive, they pollute. Maybe people could ride around those little velomobiles, whatever they call it. Oh, that hurts your rights. You and your rights, you and your privilege, the world is blowing up and you're worried about all the things that you have a right to do that most people don't. It's like you have a right to own slaves. It's disgusting how selfish people are. It's horrible. It's criminal. You gotta have limits on people's behavior. You do. Otherwise, you get the mess that we have here. People burning down statues and trying to stage a coup on the Capitol. It's crazy what's happening in this society. There has to be some order. I don't know. We got to step back. But in a way, we don't have the rights that we used to. And look at Roe v. Wade. That was considered a right for 50 years. And maybe not explicitly stated in the Constitution, but so what? The Constitution, I mean, I'm not an atheist, but I mean, I'm not one for the Bible. I'm not. But I mean, people say, well, you can't interpret the Bible literally. It's more of a metaphor. You go with the spirit, not the letter. And I would agree with that. And do I believe in the Constitution? Maybe I feel the way about the Constitution the way I feel about the Bible. There's some good things in there, and there's some bad things. You have to go with the spirit and not the letter. Anybody that goes with the letter and not the spirit of a document there's something truly sick about them. They don't understand why those words were written on the piece of paper. They were written on there for the spirit, for an idea, for an approximation. And you have to interpret those words. To take any document explicitly and say, there's no place in this document that says explicitly that there can be a health service. Is there any place in that document that says it's prohibited? Well, no, there isn't. So shut up. I'm so tired listening to people and their stupid, useless arguments. I really, really get tired of it. Just tired of listening to people. I can't believe that they even take their own words seriously because it's just so easy to disconstruct. Wait, here we go. Oh, can you hear that? Oh, that felt so good. I'm sorry. All right, I'm sorry. My eyes hurt. Oh. I haven't talked anything about science fiction, have I? I haven't even mentioned science fiction. About being an alien or feeling alien or being stuck on a planet or My Favorite Martian which I kind of get that feeling like, I think the show only lasted 3 seasons. I remember really liking it as a kid. I thought it lasted longer than it did, but I guess it didn't. But Uncle Martin lived in a house with Bill Bixby, or I don't know what his name was, upstairs. And he was like a guest until he could go back to his own planet. That was kind of a cute idea. It really was. I think it was a cute idea. And like stranger in a strange lands kind of thing. The man who fell to earth. And I feel like, or a recent derivation of that is the Solar Opposites by the Rick and Morty crowd. This family lands on Earth and they're just stuck there, and they don't really fit in well. And the funny thing about the cartoon is it's obviously they're aliens, and yet they go to high school and people kind of accept them as being aliens, illegal aliens. And they got this little larval thing, and they're waiting for it to mature so it can take over the world. It's very humorous. Sometimes I feel like I'm stuck. Sometimes I feel like an alien, and I'm stuck on the wrong planet. What can I say? I think it's a good thing they're saving the banks. I think, yeah, see, what a rant. Maybe there's something wrong with my brain that I can't hold a thought in my head too long. I wonder if these things are annoying to people. Well, if you are being annoyed by this, you don't have to watch them. You can obviously see that I'm a little incoherent. But the thing is, I'm not completely incoherent. These ideas might not be. Sometimes it's the fool on the hill that sees the world spinning around. Like, what was I watching? Max Payne and all these. First drug addict he came upon seemed to be ranting, and he just seemed to be completely delusional. But then, as the thing went on, he realized that the Valkyries, these hallucinations that the drug addicts were having, were metaphysical. We really don't know in the movies what's actually going on. But that was actually pretty good. It was with Mark Wahlberg, Mark Wahlberg. He's actually a pretty good actor. I heard something bad about him though, that he poked out an Asian guy's eyeball or something like that, or beat him up. That wasn't right. But then I heard his eyeball was poked out before, and then he just beat some guy up because he was an Asian. But that's Southie. He's a Southie. That's the way they're racist people. I don't know. I mean, sometimes it's like Mel Gibson. Some people they can't help it. That's just the culture they grow up in, and you kind of have to forgive them. It's not like you have to accept the fact that they're racist and not try to help them out of that, but you have to be a little forgiving. And everybody's racist. Like I was just, you'd see all these YouTubes about Asians being attacked, and it's not always white people. It's very seldom that it's a white person attacking them. There are racial hatreds in all cultures and ignorances, and this whole controversy about slavery and about white people and about what's it called, the Woman King or whatever, about Dahomey, about these Amazon warriors. Let's try to remember something about the kingdom of Dahomey, okay? And Bill Maher made this point. I'm going to make it too, and I don't care. I'm not a racist, but it's just real. And people have got to accept responsibility for their actions and stop blaming European civilization for all their problems. We did bad things, but it was a long time ago, and I think we've tried to make up for it. I'm just an individual. You can't blame all your problems just because someone is on. It's like this was used to. My shrink used to talk about this, and I've heard other people talk about it. The moral superiority of the oppressed. That because someone was oppressed, say a Jew in the Polish ghetto or a slave, that automatically made them a saint, and it doesn't. People are people, whether they're on top or on the bottom. They're good people on the top, and they're people living in the ghetto, even though they're oppressed. They're thugs. Okay, it's universal. It's just people being shitty to other people, and it's got nothing to do with race. The kingdom. This is the fact, and if you want to dispute it, you're wrong, because there is an objective reality. I know everybody has their own viewpoint, but facts are facts, and you have to deal with facts. The kingdom of Dahomey was based on slavery. That's how they made their wealth. And this black kingdom, black people weren't free there. They had slaves do all the work. See, that's the thing people forget. Slavery wasn't just something that white people did to other races. They enslaved other white people. That's what the Eastern Europeans were called, Slavs. Look at the poor Irish. The English treated them. The English treated the Irish so bad, you know. That's kind of why you have to cut some slack if you're talking to an Irish racist, because his people were treated worse than yours, and he's mad about that. That everybody forgets about just the shit treatment the Irish got when they first got here. You know what they used to? They used to call the Irish the niggers of Europe. That's what they used to call them. That's a terrible. I'm not going to repeat that again, but that's the reality. That's what they used to call them, because Ireland never had an empire. Ireland never really had well, they had the Book of Kells. The reason why the Irish never had a civilization was because the let's see. First it was the Anglo-Saxons, and then it was the Normans finally conquered them after the Normans had conquered England. It was the Normans that actually conquered Ireland, not the Anglo-Saxons. And once the Normans conquered Ireland, they kind of assimilated. That's what the Normans did everywhere they went. They didn't form a separate enclave. They would eventually intermarry like they did in England. That's why the English language is 30% French words or Latin words. Like beef, when you got on the table, it was boeuf. It was French, boeuf. Out in the field, it was cow, and hund, a hound, you know. You had two words for things. Poultry was pollo was a Latin word, and chicken. I don't know. You had two words. Most of the legal words, like bill and legislate, were Latin words, because their legislators, their legal system came from the Normans and from the continent and from the feudal system. Boof. Beef is the one I'm thinking of, cow. But there were other words. There are a lot of other words that were borrowed from the French and from the Latin. 1 in 3 British words. Before the Norman conquest, English sounded a lot like Frisian or like Dutch. It was Germanic. It was a purely Germanic language, and you wouldn't be able to understand it. You wouldn't really be able to understand it because it's a hybrid language. But the Irish do all right now. But the thing is, they never really maybe they did. I don't know if they, compared to other groups, they don't complain so much and why. They just did it, you know. They tried, because they never had control over their own country, and it took them a while. But now they're really rich. They've got good education system, good standard of living, good economy. Nobody had to give them reparations. The European Economic Community gave them some money so they could build roads. That's the thing. If you've got an economy, you've got to have a good infrastructure system. The government's good for that. Education, healthcare, and roads. You got to have good public sanitation, and then you let your people, when you got that skeleton and that governmental skeleton in place, you let the free market do its magic. That's what the Irish did. They're not under Britain's thumb anymore. They're a lot richer than the British. I mean, almost double. The best revenge is living well. Singapore was the same way. You know, the British used to call the wog. What's a wog? Well, the Indians are finally, climbing out of that hole they were in. But Singapore was just as poor as India or any place else. It's a smaller place. But now it's one of the richest places in the world. Hard work. education, public housing, public sanitation. They made sure that people had the basic necessities, so that and health care, although it wasn't free, so that they could live a healthy life and eat and have nutrition. But they didn't give them stuff. They made them work for it. But Singapore is now one of the wealthiest places, and the government plays a pretty strong role in the economy. It's not completely laissez-faire. My point is that Botswana, Rwanda, they're places in Africa that are now finally starting to turn around. But you don't get anywhere by complaining about how downtrodden you are and how persecuted. The places that have started to do well just said, you know what? Instead of asking people for help, why don't we help ourselves and hard work? Look on the map. You do some research if you're. I don't think anybody's watching this, but if you are, you Google Botswana. That's like a totally African nation populated by black people. They've got natural resources, but then so does Texas, and they've got a good standard of living. They maintain. Alexa, what is the homicide rate in Botswana? Alexa, what is the homicide rate in Botswana?
As of 2011, the murder rate in Botswana was 10.5 murders per 100,000 people.
That's about what our homicide rate was 30 years ago. So it's double ours. But for a third world country, Alexa, what is the homicide rate in Nigeria?
As of 2015, the murder rate in Nigeria was 9.8 murders per 100,000 people.
That's not bad. Alexa, what is the homicide rate in Venezuela?
As of 2015, the murder rate in Venezuela was 57.1 murders per 100,000 people.
Hello. Alexa, what's the homicide rate in Rwanda?
As of 2015, the murder rate in Rwanda was 2.5 murders per 100,000 people.
Whoa, See, people think that Africa is a lot worse than it. They're finally. It took them a while, but these countries are finally climbing out, and they complain about the belt, the Belt and Road, the Road and Belt, what is it, the Bolton Road, Tunnels and Road. What is? I'm going senile. The Belt and Road, the road belts. What the hell is that thing the Chinese are doing? Why are they giving people belts? I haven't got this right. Belt and Road. Belt and Road Initiative. Well, maybe I got that right. The Belt and Road Initiative is about improving physical infrastructure. Why do they call it belt? One belt, one road. Oh, Silk Road. So I guess it is called the Belt and Road. I had that right. How the Chinese are using that to get people in debt to them. Okay. But those infrastructure things, even though they're not giving them to them free, that's helping a lot of countries. People say, "Oh, they're big." Well, what did we ever do for them? We're mad that they're not dependent on us anymore. These Belt and Road initiatives have finally helped these. I hate to use the word backwards, but these countries that are just so less developed. I mean, that's the problem. They were working with nothing. So now they got a road. So now they got a tower where they can get internet connections and phone connections. Now they've got cleaner water. Now they got some housing. And Alexa, what is the GDP per capita of Botswana?
As of the most recent data available, 2021, Botswana's GDP per capita was $6,805. GDP per capita is common proxy for income per person.
See, that's another thing. You can't depend on everything that Alexa says, or even on the internet, because you get like a different Botswana. Okay, Heritage Foundation Index of Economic Freedom. Here we go. Botswana. Alexa, what's the homicide rate in Chile?
As of 2016, the murder rate in Chile was 3.5 murders per 100,000 people.
Well, that's not hardly anything. Alexa, what is the homicide rate in Uruguay?
As of 2016, the murder rate in Uruguay was 7.7 murders per 100,000 people.
Huh. All right, well, here it says that the GDP per capita of Botswana is 17,000. Mauritius is 22. So a lot of these African countries, they're not complete basket cases anymore. They're finally, the problem was that they were working with nothing. And it's like, it's really hard to pull yourself up by your bootstraps if you don't even have bootstraps. It really is. So finally, they're finally getting their act together. But the thing I'm saying is, and I probably said it the wrong way, and I probably shouldn't say it at all, is you don't get anywhere pointing your finger at somebody and saying, look what you did to me. Help me. You help yourself. All right, maybe the Irish did get screwed over by the British, and they'll tell you so, and they should, and they did. All they told the British was, get the hell out of our country. Just get out. Leave us alone. And let us do for ourselves. Let us work and reap the rewards of our own sweat or whatever. Let us run our own economy. Just get the hell out and leave us alone. They still got Northern Ireland. Northern Ireland's
being recorded. Hello, this is Jessica calling from the Board of Elections. Am I speaking with William?
yes, you are.